All right, look, Indiana fans. Saturday was great. Indiana went into Mackey and took care of business, and we were all excited. We were all fired up, and the Hoosier Sound had an emergency podcast celebrating the victory and saying that Indiana can accomplish whatever they want to accomplish this season. And then Tuesday happened, and the one thing that you've taken as a rule of thumb in the Big Ten this year is that it's tough to win on the road. Well, for Iowa, it was really freaking easy to win on the road Tuesday night. Stomping into Bloomington, scoring the first 8 points. That was all she wrote. That thing was over by 7:10, 7:15. Shout out to those of you that stuck with it until the end. But we got questions. And we got some concerns. We're going to ask if, well, are there even any silver linings coming out of that game? Or just burn the film and move on? Or does it mean anything? Well, we're going to answer those questions. Talk about the Big Ten tournament, which starts a week from yesterday. And preview Indiana's final regular season game of the season, the senior day matchup against a really fascinating Michigan team. We're going to dive into all of that and so much more here on episode 287 of the Hoosier Sound, where we're the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, where I'm your host, Nithin Christian. Here with me tonight is my usual co-host, Matt Lukens. Look, I can either look at a calendar or follow John Rothstein, Matt, to know that this is March. And Indiana kind of limped into this month after Tuesday night. How surprised were you at Indiana's 90-68 loss? And what were your main conclusions from that one?
I wasn't surprised by the loss at all. I think if you were in the playback room pregame, I said something akin to either IU is going to win by 20 or Iowa is going to win by 20, and it's going to be nowhere in between. And they won by 22. So I was almost right. And so again, and with that statement, I also said if Iowa wins by 20, it's because they shoot the rim out of Assembly Hall. Like the ball goes through the rim so much that it's impossible. They shot a higher percentage from three than they did from the floor, and they shot 55% from the floor. So, I mean, just an unwinnable game for the Hoosiers. And honestly, after a couple sleeps on it, I was very sad after it happened, of course, and having to watch it. But Iowa was a buzzsaw, and I don't know if there's a lot of teams that beat Iowa the way they were playing on that night. And that's kind of what Iowa basketball is, right? And you go back and you look at the previous seasons of Iowa, and they have games like this all the time where they just are unconscious and they just everything goes in. And that was on Monday night or Tuesday night, sorry. And everything just kept going in for Iowa. And you just kind of sit there and you don't really want to tip your hat to Fran McCaffrey because he's such a but tip your hat to the rest of the team because I thought Rabracha played a heck of a game. I thought Tony Perkins has come on so strong at the end of the year. Chris Murray puts up 26, looks every bit of a lottery pick like his brother, which I'm very happy to say is probably going to happen, and he's probably going to be gone, which is great. Peyton Sanford made himself very well known to the IU crowd. I'd be surprised if he got a very pleasant ovation next year when he comes back. But those were basically the four guys that beat Indiana. Really.
Yeah.
Rabracha had 16, Sanford had 16, Perkins had 23, and Chris Murray had 26.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy, but I think that adds up to just about 81 points. And the rest of the team, scored 9.
Yeah.
If you want to look at something, I guess before I finish my rant, if you want to look at something that IU could change, it was their 3-point defense. I thought was severely lacking. Actually, most defense for the whole game, but
Yeah.
they were hitting so many threes that the defense all of a sudden was letting up line drives because they're over helping, because they're used. The 3-point defense out the gate and the effort on the defensive end was just not there. I mean, I'm pretty sure Iowa was up. What were they up? They scored 21 points in the first
Yeah.
6 minutes.
Yeah.
They scored 21 points the first 6 minutes of the first half. I mean, that's just unconscionable. That can't happen. So, um, I think it's one of those games. I think I tweeted it the morning after. It's like, I hope that Mike Woodson goes in with a bit of like the Men in Black device and just wipes everybody's memory. Like there are lessons to be learned from this game, but
Are there though? I'm not really sure how many there are. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off. Right?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It was such a unique offense, right? Where it's 5 out, the post is almost non-existent. Rebracha will get his points and sort of mop up stuff as the game goes on. If he's wide open at the rim, of course they're going to throw it to him. It was an emotional letdown after the Purdue game. You have bigger goals and aspirations ahead of you. It sucks for the fans that paid to get in and those that sort of arranged outings and events around this game on Tuesday night. But I even asked this question a week or two ago. How important really are these 2 regular season games at the end of the season? And if I'm Mike Woodson, right, I'm not overcorrecting based on a unique offense having one of the craziest games of their lives. And when I'm sitting here on this Thursday night, I'm happy we didn't do a live post-game show like our friends at Assembly Call do on Tuesday night, because I probably would have done or said some things that I would have regretted. Mike Woodson hurled the expletives on my behalf in his post-game press conference. At the end of the day, 5 years from now, no one's going to remember this game.
Oh, I'm going to remember this game forever. But I'm not going to remember it as anything more than Iowa just being unconscious.
It's a one-off, right? It's a one-off stinker, if you ask me. And look, has Indiana had some shaky halves over the course of the last couple of weeks? Absolutely. You had a bad first half at Northwestern. You had a bad first half at home against Illinois. You had a bad second half at Michigan State. But let's not lose sight of the fact that Indiana has arguably 2 of the most impressive wins in college basketball this season, and that's going to Purdue and winning and going to Xavier and winning. All right. So any sort of broader conclusion that you're drawing about this game, to me, I think is an overreaction. Because Iowa is a team that, look, their offense gives Indiana problems. Almost no one that you face the rest of the way will play like Iowa does. And that includes Michigan on Sunday. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not the worst thing in the world that you got your stinker out of the way. Okay? I'd rather have it happen now than against, as we saw last year, St. Mary's in the NCAA tournament, which, by the way, could be a rematch for the Hoosiers in the round of 32 if things play out the way they could potentially play out the rest of the way. I'm just looking at this, Matt, and I'm saying, okay, obviously if you paid big bucks or if you scheduled something around this game Tuesday night, I know it's a big letdown. But you got Senior Day on Sunday, and you got Big Ten Tournament after that. You got the NCAA Tournament after that. Indiana has no time feeling sorry for themselves. I'm glad they got their worst game of the season out of the way on Tuesday night.
I agree. We saw Indiana kind of have a game like this against St. Mary's in the tournament
last year, and you saw Penn State maybe this year earlier in the season.
Penn State earlier in this year. I'd rather this happen against Iowa than in the tournament, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's again, that's what you just said, but
it's a wake up call.
It's nice. It's nice that it's a wake up call that happens, in March, but not in a game that was consequent. Like, look, Indiana could have lost this game, and there's still chances that Indiana can get the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed. And honestly, there's really almost no difference between the two when it comes down, to the double bye. They both get a double bye. There's really no difference. So again, we haven't seen Jalen Hood-Schifino go 4 of 14 in a game since like what, January?
Exactly. It's been a while.
It's been a while. I thought Miller Kopp didn't really get any shots in this game, and that was, he actually made only two pointers. He took 1 3. Like, Indiana lost a game that they only turned over the ball 10 times, which by the way is fantastic, and they shot 80% from the free throw line. Like it's like you could Indiana could have played good defense for 40 minutes of that game, and I bet you Iowa still would have shot 50% for the floor.
That's what,
right? And they probably still would have won.
Win by 10 or 12 or 16 or whatever. Like,
yeah. I mean, they would have been playing good defense, and some of the shots would have been contested. They're hitting contested stuff. Like, there's a lot of uncontested shots, true, but they were definitely hitting some contested stuff. Like, you just tip your hat and go, okay, whatever. Like, okay, let's see you do that against Nebraska at home. Right, like let's see if they can do that, right? And they've been unconscious since the last 2 minutes of the Michigan State game through the IU game.
Yes.
So
blame the Spartans.
I will blame MSU, and I will also
blame Izzo.
Probably say that at some point during the next game it will run out. I don't know when, but it will run out. They'll run out of gas, and I feel like they'll go back to the Nebraska team, or the Iowa team they were. Yeah. Before they became the 2016 Golden State Warriors. So, again, it's whatever. And I would not be particularly mad about this game at all. If you want to point out something that you could be a little bit scared about, and that's Iowa out rebounding Indiana by 12. Not great.
I'm not reacting. I'm honestly not reacting to any of these things. I'm really not. And like even Purdue, Purdue out rebounded. Well, Purdue's going to out rebound Indiana. Michigan State out rebounded, and Michigan State's going to out rebound Indiana. Now, everybody's
going to out rebound Indiana.
Part of the problem is defense. Indiana kind of continues to have an issue with the bench, right? We talk about where we're at. We continue to ask for more out of Tamara Bates and more from Malik Renew and more from Jordan Geronimo and CJ Gunn and whoever, right? Can Indiana get 1 or 2 more guys to step up from the sideline? You saw Caleb Banks get his shot in the first half against Iowa. Frankly, of all the players on Indiana's sideline, I think he's the person that has the most potential to help IU the rest of the way this season. Yeah. I'm going to ask you that question, Matt. I mean, first of all, how much of a leash do you have for any of IU's reserves right now? And if you could pick one from the bench, just one guy to help Indiana between now and the end of the season, who's the guy you're most confident in that can help Indiana win a big game either against Michigan or in one of the tournaments coming up?
I want to say Tamar Bates, but he's gone through such a lull that I'm not sure he's going to get out of it this year. So I'm not going to go with Tamar. I'm actually going to say that the guy is Caleb Banks, because I think he gives you really, really good minutes. He actually hit a 3.
There's something there.
There is something there for him.
It's in mop-up minutes, or you saw it in the first half against Ohio State, against Purdue, in Bloomington. There's something there, and I want to see Woodson maybe lean into it a little more.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is something there. I think he does have to put on film a couple more times that he can spread the floor. That way on offense, he's a more of a floor spacing positive, right? But yeah, I think he gives you a lot on defense. I think his length is hard to deal with. He hustles, obviously, as somebody who comes off the bench. I think there is something there for him to play minutes. And it gives Indiana a bit of a better shot at getting a rebound. He's a guy that can definitely get – he didn't get a rebound in this game, but he's a guy who's built like a guy that can. You could definitely see a lineup where it's Trace, Geronimo, and Caleb Banks out there, and that's probably Indiana's best rebounding lineup.
Yeah.
So, again,
like Renew, Bates. I mean, okay.
Renew had 10 points on 3 of 5. Like, I think Renew's going to give you stuff off the bench. I think he's been very consistent this year, but I don't think he's going to be a game changer.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
I think Caleb Banks is that guy. I think I would assume Xavier Johnson, based on what I saw in warm-up, Xavier Johnson will be back. Does he start? I don't know. He might be that guy off the bench, right? The bench is getting deeper for sure. with Xavier Johnson coming back again, because it's gonna
Well,
either it puts him on the bench or it puts one of the starters on the bench. Either way, that guy's coming off the bench.
I think, yeah, the way I look at it is he returns, if he returns, that I think sort of eliminates about 4 players from getting playing time the rest of the way. I don't think you'll see CJ Gunn see the court. I don't think you'll see Jordan Geronimo on the court all that much. I don't think you'll see Tamar Bates on the court all that much. I mean, I'll ask you this, Matt, why would Mike Woodson give Tamar Bates minutes if Xavier Johnson returns and shows that he can give you 12 minutes a game? What's the point right now? You got to shorten your bench at this point in the season, not extend it.
I kind of agree to a point. But Tamar's a guy that if he hits one shot when he goes out there, the next 5 are going in.
But when was the last time that happened?
I mean, I was gonna say, and that's not super long ago, right?
January 22nd.
That's January 22nd. Right. I mean, it's just a little bit over a month, but in the last month has been terrible. But again, it was just a little over a month ago, right? So again, I think he's a guy that for sure can give you minutes. It's just that which Tamar are you getting that day? Are you getting the 25% Tamar or the 75% Tamar? Oh. Right? Because the 25% Tamar you don't want to play. The 75% Tamar is unplayable. I mean, for the other team, like he's unguardable, yeah. Right? So I think he'll get minutes, and I think he'll get minutes probably late in the second half, or sorry, late in the first half. He'll be a guy that comes off the bench at like the under 8. And they just play him until they'll use a timeout to get him out if he's playing bad, but they'll see if they can't give the team a bit of a spark, right? Or extend a lead or give another option on offense. I think he will still play irregardless of whether Xavier Johnson comes back or not.
I was really hoping, whether it was the Michigan State game in East Lansing, which came on his birthday, or in the Iowa game on Tuesday night. Again, that one's in Assembly Hall, where statistically he does better compared to away from Assembly Hall. So hoping in either one of those games in the second half, when Indiana needs some juice, he would have been able to give it. And it didn't happen. And at this point, the margins are so slim between Indiana and every team that they face. It's slim for every one of the 35 at-larges, 36 at-larges to make the NCAA tournament. It's slim for every one of the top 13 teams. I mean, Ohio State's looking good. Outside of Minnesota, the margins are fairly slim for every opponent that you face in the Big Ten tournament, except for Minnesota.
Yep.
And so I understand the upside is there with Tamar Bates. And if I was in charge of his development, I would say, Tamar Bates, sit your rear end in Bloomington. And this offseason, it is up to you and the coaches to get you into a position where you're a starter level contributor next season. And the good news is, after March Madness, you have 6 months to figure that out. It's just that improvement isn't happening between now and the end of this month. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words on this podcast and I'll be the happiest person on the planet. But at the same time, you go back and you look at teams that make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, they shorten their bench. Heck, even St. Mary's right now, a team that is going to be somewhere in that 4 or 5 seed line, they barely even play a 7th guy. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. And it's not that they have bad players. It's that right now at this point in the season, you're only confident in 5, 6, maybe 7 players to get you across the finish line. So we'll see. Again, I'll be the happiest person on the planet if on Sunday Tamar Bates goes for 20. I'll zip my lip, and on this podcast, I'll, I don't know, have egg on my face. Don't take that seriously. So lots going on here as far as Indiana is concerned. The Hoosiers won Saturday in Purdue, lost at home to Iowa on Tuesday night. The way I look at it, I'm happy they got their stinker out of the way. Right? Get it out of your way now. Let it serve as a wake-up call now. Go out there Sunday, take care of business, run your way into the Big Ten tournament. Speaking of which,
that's not even us being soft, Nithin. That's not even like I think there's going to be some people that listen to this and be like, "Oh, you're giving them excuses." It's like
No, it's
No,
realistic. That's what it
it's
is.
just being realistic. Like, what you want me to be super mad at the team because the other team
What do
decided
you
to be
think happened to
unconscious?
Purdue
Like,
on Saturday? This is Purdue's version. Purdue
yeah,
had the stinker at Northwestern. They had the stinker against Indiana at home. They're not happy. Kansas, okay, they're going to get a 1 seed. They lost to TCU by what, 20 at home a
yeah.
month ago? I mean, this is the type of stuff we're
It's college
talking about.
basketball. This happens.
Kansas lost to Iowa State on the road by 15 in February, okay? Even 1 seeds, and Indiana's nowhere close to a 1 seed. 1 seeds get wrecked on a regular basis. You see this type of thing happen. And with Indiana, you get it out of your system now so that you don't have a similar result in March Madness, because that's when Indiana has everything to play for. Folks, let's face it. I love the fact that Indiana won twice against Purdue. I love the fact that Indiana went to Ann Arbor and won for the first time in forever. The win in Champaign was hilarious in hindsight, especially how Indiana crushed the Illini in that game. The entire offseason narrative for this team is going to be defined out of March Madness. If Indiana loses in the round of 64, while I trust Mike Woodson, while I'm happy with Trace Jackson Davis's career, while Race Thompson spent a very valuable, serviceable tenure in Bloomington, and I'll remember all of those players fondly, the narrative, the mood, the vibes surrounding this team will strictly determine, will strictly come out of how they do in the NCAA tournament. So if that means you got to get your rear end crushed against Iowa on Tuesday, so you pick yourself off the mat and you tighten your strings a little tighter and you go out there and play your tail off in the NCAA tournament, I say give me that deal 10 out of 10 times. I don't know. Am I stupid, Matt, or is that what you're seeing?
No, I agree. No, that's exactly what I'm saying.
And Iowa's a weird team. They're not predictable. They're not easy to game plan for. Yeah, and so that's why they won the Big Ten tournament last year.
Watch. Next game, they'll be 1 of 25 from 3 or something ridiculous.
Or they go 20 of 25, right? Like, that's the way it is with Iowa. That's how they play.
They live or die by the 3, and it's
why they lost to Richmond.
Living and breathing off of it on Tuesday night. And you know what? Whatever.
That's the way it is. And Mike Woodson's going to say we're going to look at the tape, we're going to review and learn and all this. I honestly, okay, maybe you got to do your job as a coach, but I was weird, and they shot the gym. They made almost every shot in the gym. So look, that's how I look at it. If you guys disagree, let us know. Throw us a comment in the YouTube. Leave a comment for us on Twitter. We're going to talk about our socials in a moment. We'll respond to you as fast as we can, because look, if if you believe there was something predictive out of that game, and hey, I watched the game on Sunday and you end up being correct, well, I'll give you a shout out on the podcast. I don't know. I got nothing. I got no agenda. So anyway, that's where it goes as far as Indiana's game against Iowa Tuesday. We're going to talk about the Big Ten tournament. There are a lot of scenarios out there. Okay. I believe the only 2 teams that have clinched their seeding are Minnesota at 14 and Ohio State at 13. Perhaps Purdue has clinched one. I haven't checked every outcome yet for Purdue as far as the 1 seed is concerned. And in fact, if I think off the top of my head, since they beat Michigan head-to-head, Purdue should be able to clinch that 1 seed by now. So everything between 2 and 12 is up in the air. Isn't that fun? We're going to talk about that in a sec. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And there are a lot of candidates to choose from. We're going to tip our cap to IU baseball starting pitcher Luke Sinnard, who thus far is 2-0 on the bump. And how about this? He went to Auburn on Sunday. Indiana had lost the first 2 games of the series. He pitched 5 innings, helped the Hoosiers to a win. Rinse, repeat, deja vu the following week. This past weekend, Indiana lost the first 2 games against a tough team in Texas. Sinnard towed the rubber on Sunday. 5 innings, helped the Hoosiers get a win. So Sinnard on the road here in 2 tough venues at Auburn, at Texas, helped Indiana win the finales in both of those weekend series. The Hoosiers off to a tough schedule to start their season, but over the course of the season, Jeff Mercer will have his team continue to adjust and continue to improve as the year goes on. Always love seeing the Hoosiers take the field as far as the baseball program is concerned. Folks, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ, as well as at the Hoosier Sound. A reminder, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Men's NCAA tournament, women's NCAA tournament, swimming, Big Ten championships, baseball, softball, Hoosiers in the pros. We cover all of it here on the Hoosier Sound. Matt, the Big Ten tournament is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Again, I don't know if there's even one team you hate. Minnesota is probably that team. They're going to likely lose on Wednesday, and the rest of the thing is going to be completely unpredictable. Indiana can fall anywhere between 2nd and 9th as we're recording this podcast on Thursday night. We have talked about here the possibility that Xavier Johnson returns for Indiana Sunday against Michigan going into the Big Ten tournament. Mike Whitson, by the way, folks, is scheduled to speak to the media on Friday. Perhaps there will be an update coming out of that. There's a lot that can happen here for Indiana between now and the end of the Big Ten tourney. What are one or two things you're looking for here to emphasize for IU? Do you care about the double bye? Do you want to see Indiana get the most out of Xavier Johnson? Do you want the Hoosiers to find someone coming off the bench and helping them out, maybe in addition to Malik Renew? What are the one or two things you're paying attention to? I guess the bigger question, does it even matter?
No, I don't think it matters. It would be nice for Indiana to win a couple games just because I think it'll increase their odds on a 3 or a 4 seed in the tournament. But
and you get rest if you don't
and you get rest. And you get rest if you don't win. But I think again, if you end the season with a loss, this bad loss to Iowa, let's say they win against Michigan and then like a first round exit in the Big Ten tournament, you're probably gonna drop to like the 5 or 6 line. So you probably gotta win a game or two. But again, I think the Big Ten tournament is inconsequential to Indiana's season overall. Again, they're in the tournament. And
Isn't
they
it
can
nice?
lose. They can lose
like
every single game. Yeah, it
like
is. It is really nice.
Remember last year at this point?
Yes. I don't want to go through that ever again. All right. I hate being on the bubble. Being on the bubble sucks. It's a terrible experience, and I'd much rather be worrying about whether we're getting a 1 or a 2 seed.
Same.
Yeah, and for me, it's how much game time does Xavier Johnson get? I think that would be the other thing for me. The Big Ten tournament doesn't matter, but kind of working out the rotation before the actual big games start. But that's what's important. Sorry, excuse me.
I could not agree with you more. Right. So Xavier Johnson is the only thing that matters for me as far as Indiana in the Big Ten tournament. And if you're telling me he's unavailable, I want the team to get out of it healthy. And I don't care if it means losing on Thursday because Indiana didn't get the double bye and they lost on Thursday. And I don't know, you go out and you lose to freaking whatever, Nebraska, or you lose to freaking Penn State, or you lose to whoever. Like, I do not care. The only thing I ask is that Indiana is healthy going into the Big Ten tournament and no one runs into a suspension or something stupid, right? Like, I cannot emphasize that enough. I do not give a rat's if Indiana wins a game in the Big Ten tournament if you're telling me Xavier Johnson is unavailable. Now, if he is, all I care about is Xavier Johnson integrating himself into the Hoosiers rotation. Now, if that means you gotta win it, you gotta win 2 or 3 games in order to get more reps, be my guest. Be my guest, because Xavier Johnson is the one player that can elevate this team into being a true Final Four threat.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take much. In fact, if you go look at Evan Miyakawa's Twitter account, Evan Maya on Twitter, M-I-Y-A is his last name. Xavier Johnson, if you look at every Hoosier that's played this season, is Indiana's second most efficient player. Okay? I don't know if people remember that, given when he got hurt.
It's been like so long.
It was back in the Reagan administration. I mean, that's how long ago it felt. Look, Indiana
alive then.
Has not had Xavier Johnson for a long time, 3 months. And if he's got to play 3 games to integrate himself into IU's rotation to getting to a point where he's an 18-minute per game player or 20-minute player in the round of 64, that's music to my ears. If he can't play because his foot is giving him problems and he can't suit up, and again, Mike Woodson might provide an update Friday. We'll see how warmups go on Sunday. I'm not breaking any news to any of you. If he isn't available, get out of the Big Ten tournament healthy. That is all I care about. And if that means Indiana loses to Nebraska, it does not matter. I do not care. In fact, a quick nugget for you, all of you listening. I listened in to Delphi Bracketology's podcast earlier tonight, and they said Indiana's ceiling in all likelihood is a 4, and Indiana's floor in all likelihood is a 5. Okay? Are there crazy results that could happen? Sure. Anything's possible. But the top 12 teams have pretty rock-solid resumes. Indiana did get hurt with that 20-plus point home loss. That doesn't reflect great. At the end of the day, ceiling about a 4, floor about a 5. Is it possible Indiana maybe praise themselves into a 3 with the Big Ten tournament run? Sure. Do I care? No, I don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. All I care about is whether Xavier Johnson is able to become a key 6th man for IU the rest of the way. And Matt, that's going to upset people, right? Because I know a lot of people want Indiana to win in the Big Ten tournament because Indiana never wins in the Big Ten tournament except for that 2-game miracle they had last season.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there another side to it? Because I say I just want, and look, Trace Jackson Davis is kind of, the back doesn't look as great as it looked 3 weeks ago. And Race Thompson, every time he hits the floor, I hold my breath. And Trey Galloway feels like he's one loose ball dive away from hurting a finger or a wrist. I mean, get to March Madness healthy. That's all I care about. If I'm crazy, I'm crazy. You can tell me.
No, you're not crazy. This team has been battling injuries all year. So it would be crazy to call you crazy because that's legitimately what's been happening.
And Big Ten teams lose in March Madness frequently because they go far in the Big Ten tournament. Why bother?
Yeah, I unless they're like gonna win the thing.
Fine.
One game. I ask for one game. Okay, if they lose to Iowa in the semifinals, so be.
That's the way it is, right? And look, I know there are going to be Hoosier fans in Chicago who once again have planned to go and watch the Big Ten tournament because Indiana's good finally and not a team fighting for a spot in the NCAA tournament. I would honestly take all of this as a tip of the cap to Mike Woodson and the staff. You have worked your way into 4-seed, 5-seed territory in March Madness in your second year at Indiana.
Yeah, you didn't play a cupcake non-conference schedule, and you
did not, and you, by the way, did not play a cupcake Big Ten schedule, right? Only one game against Minnesota. Woodson didn't even coach. One game against Nebraska. That was back in December.
The only time you played Maryland is at their home floor when they play like the 97 Bulls.
Same deal with Penn State. Only time you played there was the only time you played them was in their place. Of course, when you were in a real drought as well. Tip of the cap. Indiana could very well be a bubble team right now if they didn't have Mike Woodson as their head coach. If they didn't have an excellent Trace Jackson.
No, they wouldn't be in the tournament if Mike Woodson wasn't their head coach. Okay? If Archie was still here, they would definitely not be in the tournament. Go look at Rhode Island's record and tell me that Archie is a good coach.
And so I take this, honestly, Indiana fans, like not every loss, not every game has to be a source of outrage. And I know that might be hard for a lot of you to hear, but that Iowa game was like, it was kind of whatever. And you know what? If Indiana falls out of the top 4, that Thursday game in the Big Ten tournament is going to be whatever. And if Indiana does get the top 4, which we hope, coming out of a senior day win against Michigan, or I believe you need either a Maryland road loss or a Northwestern road loss over the weekend. If Indiana gets a top 4 spot in the Big Ten, great. Another accomplishment, another feather in the cap for this team. And if they lose on Friday to, Northwestern, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And Indiana's going to sit somewhere in that 4-seed line, that 5-seed line. And for me, as I put out as a contingency a moment ago, all I care about And I honestly don't even care about Indiana's reserves stepping up and finding some source of inspiration out of Caleb Banks or Malik Newton-Martin. Xavier Johnson, if he's available to play, integrate him into the team. And if that means you got to play 2 or 3 games in the Big Ten tournament, then be my guest, go out there and win them. I'll be perfectly happy. So that's how Matt and I see Indiana in the Big Ten tournament. Again, still pretty crazy if you fast forward here through basically 19 games for every team in conference play. Nothing has been decided between the 2 seed and the 12 seed. So there you go. How about Indiana? We'll see. They got to take care of business Sunday. I think all of us are looking forward to seeing them play their final game of the regular season against the Michigan Wolverines on Senior Day in Assembly Hall. We're going to talk about that game in just a second. But first, it's time for our social media shout out. And with the NFL Combine in Indianapolis this week, we're going to tip our cap. We're going to give our shout out to Cam Jones, the superstar linebacker at Indiana over the last handful of seasons. He is actually going through drills as we speak here on this Thursday night as he tries to improve his NFL draft stock. I think Cam Jones is going to be a star in the NFL. And if he's not a star, I think he's at least going to exceed expectations. He's going to provide surplus value from whenever he is taken in the NFL draft. If he, for some reason, falls out, I think every team in the league is making a massive mistake, and whoever picks him up as an undrafted free agent will reap the rewards. You can follow Cam Jones on Twitter at CJones1_. He's someone that has caught the attention of a lot of scouts here ever since Indiana's season ended against Purdue back in November. So feel free to give Cam Jones a follow, like his stuff if you've not already. Indiana has got spring ball coming up here over the next couple of weeks before an in-person event on March 15th. Folks, our socials, if you want to follow us, you can find us at Indiana HQ and at The Hoosier Sound on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Matt, on Instagram, we're not Indiana HQ, but what are we?
Indiana.HQ.
That's where you can find us there. We're going to have Charlie at Assembly Hall on Sunday. We're going to be following this team from now until the end of the year. We don't know how long that's going to go. Folks, Indiana takes on Michigan Sunday afternoon, a 4:30 tea time start on CBS. The Hoosiers are projected to beat the Wolverines by 4 per KenPom. The Indiana knocked off Michigan 62-61. The last time out in Ann Arbor, that was a pretty fun game. I remember it fondly. Indiana has some bounce back incentive coming up here. Michigan right now playing at Illinois on this Thursday night, which means Indiana will have a 2-day rest advantage. Jet Howard, their future lottery pick, missed the last few games. He did return tonight for the Wolverines. Michigan is squarely on the bubble, much like Indiana was last season, how the tide has turned. Now, look, Matt, there's a lot to discuss here. Okay, and I do know Michigan was on the bubble last year. 2 years ago, they were 1 seed. Juwan Howard may wonder what happened since then. Look, Michigan's 42nd in KenPom, 42nd offensively, 60th defensively. I know you pay a lot of attention to this Michigan team, Matt, like you pay attention largely to the entire Big Ten. What are 1 or 2 things Indiana has to do here to make sure they come out of Senior Day with a win against the Wolverines?
Well, one, Michigan's team is different now because Jet Howard came back this game. They're playing by this game. I mean, they're playing Illinois while we're recording this podcast, and I have it on my second monitor. So if you see me looking over there, I'm actually watching the Michigan game while I'm talking. But they're playing Illinois right now, and they got Jet Howard back. So the team has a different dynamic. Unlike Xavier Johnson, I think Michigan is better when Jet Howard is out of the lineup than when he plays. Actually, having watched them play, I think they're better. I think Jet's a fantastic player. I think he's a lottery pick. Don't get me wrong. But they just run so many plays for him, and they should be running plays for Kobe Buffkin. They should be letting Doug McDaniel. They should be letting Joey
Baker.
Baker. Thank you. His last name slipped my mind.
Duke transfer.
Yeah, the Duke transfer. Shoot the ball more. And get more shots. And then also, I think he takes away opportunities from Hunter as well, because a lot of times down the floor, he'll take a bad shot. He'll take a stupid, heat check 3. All of these are just bad possessions for Michigan that could have been better run as a team perspective if it hadn't been Jet playing. Still, Jet has the potential to literally single carry a game, so there's that too to factor into it. And he is the coach's son, so he will play. But again, I do think that Michigan is a better team without Jet on the floor, and I think it's proving right now. He comes back, and they're losing by 7 on the road at Illinois, and I believe Illinois, Illinois has no guards. Their only guard that is currently healthy is that they play significant minutes is RJ Melendez.
Yeah.
So they're running Ty Rodgers point guard duty right now, which is it's a tough watch, and they're still losing that. So I think Indiana will end up winning this game on Sunday. Again, the Hoosiers historically are really good on senior night as it is. You already beat them in East Lansing. Sorry, not East Lansing, Ann Arbor. And again, like I said, they're a worse team when Jet plays, and we played them when Jet wasn't playing and beat them. So,
and what's interesting,
that'll be an interesting curve.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing, right? With Michigan, a lot of you may ask, why are they on the bubble? You look at the Big Ten standings today, and Michigan is in second place. You might say, well, what's the matter there? Well, the problem is the Wolverines have a very difficult time beating good teams.
And they also have time beating good teams. They also have terrible losses. They have losses. They have a loss at home to Central Michigan.
Okay. And a neutral loss to Arizona State by 25.
Yeah.
And the truth is, they are playing efficient basketball right now, and they are feeling good about themselves right now. In fact, if you look at Bart Torvik's rankings since February 1st, Michigan is the 12th most efficient team in college basketball. Indiana's sitting around 50th. Now, included in there, of course, you're an Indiana fan, it's the road loss at Michigan State, not great. The home loss to Iowa, not great. Michigan has avoided those kind of ugly losses. In fact, their only 2 losses since the start of February were at home to Indiana by a point and at Wisconsin by 5. The problem for the Wolverines is that their wins haven't been all that great. Their best win is at Rutgers. That counts, but that's only their 3rd quad 1 win of the season. They needed a buzzer beater by Hunter Dickinson at the end of regulation to beat Wisconsin at home. What's interesting about the story here is that as much of a bubble team as Michigan is, if they end up losing this game that Matt has on a second monitor, I'm not sure how incentivized they'll be to bring their best effort to the court at Assembly Hall on Sunday. Indiana's going to, because it's senior day, and Trace Jackson Davis is going to speak, and Indiana's going to have others take the mic on the court on Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a passionate, emotional, late afternoon into evening at Assembly Hall. But the irony is, if Michigan loses this game today, I don't know how fired up they're going to be. They may just put all their eggs in the Big Ten tournament basket, which, if you ask me, would not be all that bad of a strategy from a Michigan standpoint. Now, this game will be a 4:30 p.m. Eastern tip on CBS. My question for you, Matt, before we give our predictions, is the same question I put out there on the weekly podcast poll, which is, coming out of Indiana's loss to Iowa on Tuesday night, should Mike Woodson's objective for Sunday be to find whatever way that he can find to win this game, which is your normal objective for the entire college basketball season? Or do you want Indiana to put extra emphasis on winning this game comfortably? Go out there and spank another team like Iowa spanked you on Tuesday. Do you care about style points in this final regular season game that Indiana has coming up on Sunday?
I couldn't care less about style points. I just want Trace Jackson Davis's last game in Assembly Hall to be a win. Okay?
That's it.
And be a night in a fantastic atmosphere, which I'm assuming it will be. So I do think the Hoosiers will end up winning this. Nithin, I think the final score will end up being around 72-65. I think they'll win. I think they'll cover. I think they'll win by 7.
There you go. And right now, Ken Palm has 76-72 in favor of the Hoosiers. I just wonder if Michigan has that much motivation on Sunday. I know Indiana will.
See,
and
I disagree with that point of view.
Okay,
I think if they lose to Illinois today, they're going to be desperate to get a win against Indiana. I still think even if they're desperate, I still don't think they're going to win. But I think they'll be desperate to try to get something to salvage something of value, which would be of great value, by the way, if they beat us on the road. Something of great value before the Big Ten tournament starts. That way, they makes their Big Ten tournament run a little bit easier. Like they'll probably only have to make the semis.
Okay.
Right. Or have
something like
to
that,
maybe
right?
just only make the final instead of actually having to win the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, and it makes sense. I see where you're coming from. It's going to be interesting. Michigan, as we pointed out here already, they are a very Jekyll and Hyde type of team. Some games they come out, they look great. You look at how they've played this year, for example, when they went to Rutgers and won by 13. On the other hand, they lost at home to Central Michigan. It's a very
they're like a
range.
slightly worse version of Iowa.
Yeah, and again, they just don't have that same level of uniqueness. Of course, Indiana will remember the fact they went to Michigan and knocked off the Wolverines by a point earlier this February. I think Indiana wins this one in lopsided fashion. I really do, and I think about the senior night vibes that are going to surround Assembly Hall. Mike Woodson, he said some bad words after Indiana's lost to Iowa on Tuesday, and I have faith in Mike Woodson. That should be a bumper sticker that they sell around the state of Indiana and around Hoosier Nation. I have faith in Mike Woodson, and I think Mike Woodson's a better college basketball coach than Juwan Howard is. And I think Mike Woodson's going to make sure he puts his players in the correct situation Sunday to make sure that IU comes away with a win that I think will be in the double digits. I have IU coming out of this one with a 78-62 victory at Assembly Hall on senior night. I think Indiana will potentially see a few minutes out of Xavier Johnson. And I know the general perception is that, it's going to be a little rough at the beginning. My perception is that his minutes will instantly be an upgrade over anyone else's minutes that have tried to replace him over the last month.
That Ant Wright was like, are you sure like Xavier Johnson's coming back is going to be a good thing? Like it's going to disrupt the team's chemistry. I said, Ant, look at who's coming off the bench, bro. Like look at the minutes we're getting from the bench.
It's Bates, it's Gunn, it's Leal, it's Banks, it's tired Trey Galloway. Fire me up, Xavier Johnson. I'll take that risk. Okay.
Like who like what? No.
Anyway, I think we're on the same page with that. Yeah. It's going to be an instant upgrade over the 15 minutes you're getting out of all those other guards. And the good news for Trey Galloway and Jalen Hood-Schifino is that, well, all of a sudden their responsibilities diminish by 2 or 3 minutes as well.
They get to play off the ball more.
What a shocker, right? I mean, Brady, what a savior. So Xavier Johnson, we don't know what will happen. Mike Woodson will speak to the media on Friday. We'll pay attention to warm-ups on Sunday. And hey, I know all of us would be excited to see number 0 in uniform for Indiana on Sunday afternoon. So what's up?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's wind it down, Matt. I mean, It's Thursday night. Prime college basketball peak season is here. I am absolutely immersed in small conference tournaments right now. Big time women's basketball conference tourneys underway. You're seeing the men's regular season wind down as well. What are your final thoughts here on this Thursday?
Women play tomorrow, Michigan State, noon 30.
Can't wait. After Michigan State beat Indiana earlier this year.
That's true. This is a revenge game. Also, I would assume, I said it earlier in the podcast, but I'll say it again. I'm assuming that Xavier Johnson's back on Sunday. I have no information, just eyeball test, and based off of how seriously he was taking the warm-ups against Iowa at home, and he was in uniform when every other time he's not been in uniform, even though he's been warming up with the team. That tells me he'll probably play on senior night because, again, he'll probably, have a speech because he is also, I don't believe he can return next year. So, yeah, I would expect to see X for at least a couple of minutes against Michigan, and that would be a good thing for the Hoosiers for sure.
That would be awesome. I think a lot of folks have forgotten how valuable Xavier Johnson was to Indiana at the start of the year when, of course, they didn't have Jalen Hood-Schifino for a decent stretch. So I can't wait to see Agent Zero on the court for Indiana. All you have to do, if you really want to get fired up, all you got to do is flip on Xavier Johnson's performance at Purdue last season in that game against Illinois on the Thursday of the Big Ten tournament. The game against Michigan on the Thursday, the game against Illinois on Friday. He was magnificent in those three matchups. Guys, this is it. This is March. That's all I got to say. All right. And Indiana's offseason will be determined largely by what happens in the NCAA tournament. And you might be pulling your hair out when I say Indiana's loss to Iowa really didn't matter. Indiana's performance in the Big Ten tournament really doesn't matter. I promise you, in 5 years, you will not be able to quickly recall off the top of your head what happened for Indiana against Iowa on Tuesday and what will happen for Indiana in the Big Ten tournament coming up. There are bigger goals and bigger aspirations at hand. And those begin pretty much 2 weeks from today in the NCAA tournament. Folks, that about wraps it up on our 287th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation. We will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.